So I thought I'd just talk about why Jon Stewart is like this, because I've been watching a lot of Jon Stewart. You know, he made his little podcast called The Problem with Jon Stewart, and I think we
There's
covered...
too many to count.
I think we covered it when the launch, because it was horrific, is the right term. I mean, one episode was The Problem with White People.
I mean, I covered one a few months ago, was the big one, where he was defending Drag Queen Story Hour by pointing out, don't you understand that more children are killed by guns in the US than anywhere else? What does that have to do with Drag Queen Story Hour?
Just scare. What if I just...
what if
look over here.
What if I just throw a talking point at you,
Yeah, it's pathetic. But the problem with White People, I think, was the most egregious, because he's not made any sequels on that. No other
Until
groups
now?
have gotten the magnifying glass, looked at them. Only white people, it seems, because Jon Stewart doesn't...
The problem with the chosen... Oh, no.
He's
He
just
wouldn't
not...
ever do that.
He's just not sincere in his ability to actually deal with stuff. He just parrots left-wing nonsense.
Although I do want to see Jon Stewart the problem with those damn Japs.
They bombed Pearl Harbor. I'll never forgive him. But but he recently did some stuff about inflation, and I've been enjoying it, which has made me feel dirty. So I thought we'd go over why.
All right, okay.
I'd confess my sins.
I need a smile put back on my face after that last segment, so let's go for it.
We'll start just by promoting something else, which is someone rickety reckoned themselves, which is the Cyberpunk Dystopia stream we did on I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, because humanity rickety wrecked itself there.
Sorry,
Rickety-roo.
I think I had a mini heart attack when you said that. Did you just say rickety wreck itself?
Yeah, rickety wrecked themselves.
Oh, right, okay.
Moving forward, let's go to the inflation statistics, because inflation is bloody miserable. Like, sincerely miserable. We have the problem with Jon Stewart
I don't need Jon Stewart to tell me about this.
No, but he did this segment where he's talking about inflation, and the
Gives a lot of misinformation, I'm assuming.
No, it's not. No, he actually did...
Is it because of greedy capitalists?
He did a fairly good job of being like, you know what, inflation bad. You know what's worse about inflation is when the cost of inflation is entirely put on the workers. It's like, yeah, that's pretty bad.
That's certainly one of the things that happens with inflation. When
there's high inflation and then there's no increase in wages, it's like, yeah, all the burden's put on the workers. That's probably the worst thing you could do.
And there's even a term for it.
Macroeconomic scale.
Anybody who's familiar with economics might have heard of the Cantillon effect, which is something that's been known about for about 250 or so years now.
Aye. Tell us about it.
Oh, do you not know?
Nope.
Oh, Cantillon effect. Richard Cantillon, and I think he was Irish, was living in France and realised that the government was printing an F ton of money, and then realised that the money doesn't just all go out into the economy in the same places all at once. It doesn't just get distributed equally.
It goes to certain people.
It goes to certain people, and then they get the main benefits, and then the people that they are spending the money on, they get the benefits, and then it all goes downstream until
the plebs are completely screwed.
Until you and Grandma, when you finally get the money, everything else has already gone up in price.
Yeah. That's a great example, actually, of how the distribution has been miserable.
He wrote a book partially explaining it, so he's known this for like 200 years.
So John does this thing that he usually does. There's a compilation of people talking about inflation exists, and they're all talking about the 6% this year. I kind of hate this because I don't like doing it per year, because it always distorts how bad it really is. So we're going to compare it to 2020 in a minute. But the solution from all of the talking heads on American media is, you know what, how do we solve inflation? We need wages to go down and for people to be unemployed, to lower the pain that Americans are feeling. Which John correctly points out is kind of retarded. So, you know those American people who are working hard but now really struggling to pay their bills? What if we make them paid them less and made them unemployed?
Is this going to be, what if we outsource all of our industry to other countries so that we can get things cheaper? But the problem with that logic that I've always thought is, I don't care if things are cheaper if it means I have no job to make no money so that I can't buy these now cheaper products.
I mean, the joke he picks is, to solve your headache, we're going to give you medicine through your dick hole. I mean, that's the only way of getting rid of pain.
Quite good.
Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, fair enough.
Are we becoming Jon Stewart appreciators in this segment? Because it will make me feel dirty.
This is what I meant, I felt dirty. For about 10 minutes, I was like, okay, Jon Stewart's talking sense. This is worrying me. Because we'll go to the next one here. Just to point out that per year, hate that. Instead, let's compare it to 2020, because that's the best place to put it. For the UK, pretty miserable. It's 25.5% inflation since 2020. This is a quarter of your savings gone and a quarter of your income gone if you haven't had a pay raise. So that's great. Fantastic. We go to UK doctors. You remember all the NHS doctors campaigning? I thought they might have been over-exaggerating. Turns out, holy crap, is it bad for them. Because here's a graph who this guy put together, where he's got, different sectors, doctors in training, nurses, especially registrars here, and he's showing you their pay over time. And as you can see, inflation and pay changes have kind of ground them into the dirt compared to their 2010 counterparts. I mean, if you click on that to make it bigger for folks, we can see doctors in training, 2010, and about 60 grand.
Yeah,
Okay?
a little over.
And then their pay just gets, butchered. Oh, which is pretty bad. It's not fun. But okay, it'll go up someday. Someday that sun has got to shine.
Or it does, just briefly.
And then suck it, loser. So it's a 25% pay cut. So they're now down to about, I think it's 38 was what we were being told from the junior doctors, if you're starting out there. Yeah, a bit of a downfall from 60.
Notice how all three of these graphs are basically the same as well. They've all gone down in unison with one another in the same way.
It's almost like when the government prints all the money, it kind of screws everyone.
I know, right?
But the worst part here is when you figure out the conversion. So if a 2010 doctor was getting paid, if their wages hadn't been destroyed, a junior doctor would be getting paid 100 grand. Which is a lot of money. And I thought, that's a hell of a lot of money. Okay.
It's good. I'd be happy with 100 grand a year.
Maybe they did need to come down a little bit, because that's a huge amount, isn't it? And then I looked up, no, it's not, turns out. So if you go to the United States, for example, if you're an NHS doctor, and you think, thank you for all that training, thank you for paying for that, see ya, buddy, I'm going to the States, 113 grand, median there, starting off at 95 at the bottom, going up to 137 for a junior doctor.
All right.
They're offering jobs right now. I saw a bunch of adverts the junior doctors were all retweeting. They're all getting offered jobs for 100 grand to go to Australia and be junior doctors.
Is it too late to change careers?
I don't think so, but it's if you're someone who's trained to be a doctor in the UK and then you find out these statistics, why the hell would you stay here?
No, of course. Why would you stay here?
If there are only junior
and all of a
doctors
sudden,
watching,
why are all of my doctors Indian?
it's confusing as to how this might have happened. The socialist healthcare system we have might not be paying off for literally everyone involved. Never mind just the patients. But moving on, I mean, continued mass immigration, not helping, of course. Some changes here I thought I'd just update everyone on, which are great. So you might have noticed that immigration number went up hugely. Well, there's been a bit of a change, which is we got rid of all the middle-class immigrants and exchanged them for Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshis, and Nigerians. As you can see the graph there, shooting up.
Fantastic.
So I really wish they'd break up the Indian, Pakistani, and Bangladeshi sections, because those people are very different from each other. But there we have it.
See, that's another fun thing about inflation. When you talk about, more money in the economy means more money, more actual individual tokens of exchange for the same amount of products. But then also you've got to factor in more people come in, therefore increasing yet again the demand for those products, therefore increasing the price of them because...
But bro, the pyramid scheme works.
Oh, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah.
But I got this graph and I managed to make the line go up if I use super wizard magic. So it's all okay. Worship the line graph.
Yeah. Well, going back to the US, they've got 16.6% inflation since 2020. So if you haven't had your pay rise since 2020, that's 16% of your money gone. Thanks. You know who did that? It wasn't the greedy corporations or the greedy workers asking for a pay rise. It's the government. They're the ones who can print the money. They're the ones who can hand out debt en masse through bonds. And this is where John pissed me off. Because getting back to John's show.
Oh, no.
So he did an interview with the former Secretary of the Treasury. And this dude, Larry Summers, interesting fella. He's done a lot of things. He's, I think he used to be, what was it? An Obama and Clinton advisor under both those administrations.
That's not a good sign to me.
But it means he's still connected to the Biden admin, of course, helping them out where he can. He also was a US Federal Reserve candidate, and after he lost that, he was offered the Bank of Israel, which came out of nowhere, which is weird. Anyway, but then...
Did it, though?
After that, he decided to go on and work for, what was it, like the World Bank or something? Can't remember. I was reading his Wikipedia page. Interesting guy. Did a lot of things. If there's anyone I can point to and be like, this guy can be a representative of the central bankers for an interview, it would be him. And, well, John sits there and points out some very accurate stuff, and then is like, you know who's really to blame? Corporate profit.
Yeah, I knew it was going to get there eventually.
Not the banker sat in front of you who printed all the money. No, instead it's those damn corporations. But quickly, just because the banker argument is that he blames inflation on workers demanding pay increases to deal with their increasing costs. You may have noticed that sentence doesn't make any logical sense, because how would the increase in costs happen if the workers were causing the inflation after the increase in costs happen? Cart before the horse. But we'll listen to that in a minute. Quickly, I thought we'd just have a word from Tick History, who I noticed actually subscribed to the channel. So,
Oh, nice.
thank you, fella. And
Hello.
if you want to meet up, love your work. Anyway, but he did this.
He will offer you cheesecake in very suspicious ways.
And there's this video here about MIFO bills back in the day, and he does a very good explanation of inflation that is not the one that the central bankers will tell you, which is, oh, it's the increase in costs. It's like, no, it's not the increase in the costs. That doesn't make any logical sense. And here's why. Let's play Tick being awesome.
Word inflation used to mean the expansion of the currency supply. Why?
Yeah.
Because the word inflate means to expand. The word inflate does not mean rise. If you walk upstairs, you do not inflate. If you go up in an elevator, you do not inflate. If you take off in a plane, you do not inflate. That's because a rise in something is not an inflation. An expansion of something is an inflation. A balloon that rises does not inflate, but an expanding balloon does inflate, and assuming it's filled with helium, what is the effect of an inflating balloon? The rise of the balloon. Inflation causes the rise. A rise is not an inflation. So, the rise in price is not an inflation. The expansion or inflation of the currency supply causes a rise in prices. But the central bankers don't want you to know this, so they changed the definition to say that a rise in prices was inflation. In other words, they're trying to trick you. Inflation results in bubbles and the destruction of the currency supply and your savings. Thus, they claim that inflation is rising prices to hide the inflation that's happening, allowing them to steal your currency and reduce your living standards.
That's a good little explanation there. It sounds like you got it straight out of an Austrian textbook.
Yeah, it's perfect, and it's a great way of showing it. And
Interestingly, that fun part is that because there is always a gap due to the Cantillon effect between the money being put into the system and then the prices rising, is always why they're able to get away with just blaming it on random other S.
trust me, it's a rise in prices that just happened out of the ether. It's not because I printed all the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we'll see this central banker who completely denies it instead in this interview with John, and we'll play that. It's a bit long, but I think you'll get my point. Let's play that clip.
I don't think it's a tenable view that all of a sudden corporations became greedy. Of course there's monopolies in the economy, John, and we should be for
They've been
much
bragging
more
about
aggressive,
it on
much
their
more
earnings
aggressive
calls.
than we were.
They're on their earnings calls, they're saying our profits have never been higher. We're killing it. The markups during the pandemic are sometimes they're saying 70% of what they were.
If there was a huge increase in the demand for shrewd television commentary, I imagine the demand for what you do would go way up. And I imagine you'd convert that into higher wages and getting more and getting paid better.
You're
And
saying
I don't
it's the
think
market
you'd
at
call
work.
I don't think you'd call yourself a gouger when you.
I would absolutely call myself a
when
gouger.
you did that.
And by the way,
when
the
there's
effect of the talk show business is very different than the effect of ExxonMobil, right? I mean, let's be fair.
I think, isn't this show going to be on Apple TV?
Correct.
And I think Apple TV is worth about 5 times as much as Exxon. I think Apple's price, since the stimulus began, Apple's value has gone up by about $1.2 trillion.
Right.
That's $4,000 for every American, just an increase in the value of Apple.
You just made my point for me.
Do you feel that Apple is somehow gouging or doing something wrong?
Yes, of course. And Exxon is, and Mobil is.
So let's talk about Apple. Let's talk about
though.
Apple. Do you think Apple should just sell phones for less and not have enough phones? What would you have Apple do?
You're saying to me, John, market forces are market forces. And if demand goes up, are you suggesting, young man, that Apple should charge less than they could charge? Let me flip that on you. When there's a tightness in the labor market, what you're saying is the workers shouldn't do the same. that the workers, just following the same capitalistic principles that allow Apple to charge more for their phones, shouldn't charge more because wage inflation is driving inflation.
That's not at all what I'm saying, John.
That's exactly what you're saying.
I just find this whole conversation insufferable.
It's so performative
Because
on both ends.
You've got the central banker there just being like, well, you got John sitting there being like, oh, it's the business owners raising their prices. That's causing the inflation. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. And then you've got the central banker who's like, no, it's their contracted employees who are demanding wage increases to deal with the costs in their lives who are causing inflation. I was just like, both of you must be brain dead or something.
No, they're not. They're not brain dead. They both just know where the money comes from. Even if that guy was defending Apple will still take massive subsidies from the US government. Apple is still very useful as using Apple TV as a means through shows like Jon Stewart to transmit the preferred ideas that they want going to the public.
Keep fighting about whether or not it's the greedy business owners or the greedy employees.
Keep your eyes off of somebody like us or Tick History or anybody else who might be online who knows more about this or is at least incentivized to be more honest about it, who might tell you about where all of these effects really come from, and keep watching this.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of the things that obviously neither of these groups are the responsible for the inflation of the currency. It's people who control the inflation of the currency who are responsible for the goddamn thing. And we can see this. I mean, even USA Today has it here, where they're just like, look, here's $5.2 trillion that's printed by the government here.
I believe that was.
This is by Trump here. Wasn't
this like 80%? This might be a false figure. I don't know, but I did hear people saying it was about 80% of all of the dollars that had ever been printed.
Printed in the last like 3 years or something.
Yeah.
It's great. It's fantastic. So you got the Trump admin printing over $2 trillion for COVID payments and corruption also getting fitted in there. Pork barrel stuff, of course. But then it got much worse. We got the next one here. I mean, here's from Marketology, just listing that in 2020, US Fed printed $3 trillion. It's pretty bad. 2021.
Why must you remind me of all this? I was hoping for another fun segment after my miserable segment.
The Joe Biden era, $13 trillion were printed. But, it's those damn greedy workers asking for pay increases or those damn greedy business owners increasing the price of their goods.
I will say that when it comes to the business owners, obviously not the small business owners, but a lot of the giant conglomerate businesses like Apple and other such things, the people at the top of those, they will probably be voting Democrat and they will probably be voting on behalf of all of these measures going ahead in the first place. So I can blame them, but not just for the reasons that Jon Stewart is putting forward.
Yeah, it is just comical. I mean, one of the things that he mentions is like they put their prices and their profits are great. It's like, yeah, because they haven't increased the wages in line with the price increases at their companies. So they're saving cash.
I mean, Jon Stewart should be happy if these places are making record profits because a lot of that money is going to be going for super PACs and political coalitions that he supports anyway.
But we'll just go through the data here real quick, because the idea that, it's the greedy workers asking for a pay increase or the greedy business owner putting up the price of his Kit Kats. So it's like, no. It's the people inflating currency that cause the inflation. You've got the CARE Act here under Trump, $2 trillion because, pandemic. Okay. The next one being $2.3 trillion under Trump for more COVID relief, and then a bunch of rando stuff that was thrown in because Gibbs. You may remember the $2,000 check debate. Remember that? Because I think it should be $3,000 for every American. I think $5,000 for every American. I mean, that was the point at which you knew that American politics...
I think it should be $1 million for
every American should get $1 million. Are there any downsides to us printing all this money?
It really should have just been Randy from South Park just bursting in, shouldn't it?
Yeah, and then you got Biden time.
What, you're not saying $4 billion for every American? I thought this was America.
Because then, the pandemic's over, but printing doesn't stop, because now we're in a new way of politics, which is, what if we just pay ourselves money and vote for more money? So you have the American Rescue Plan, that's $2 trillion. And then forever, America was rescued.
$2 trillion.
$2 trillion. And then you got the infrastructure bill, $1.2 trillion.
We live in a cartoon.
Yeah, so that's a good job. And then you've got the Inflation Reduction Act, which stopped inflation by inflating the currency supply another $0.7 trillion.
There's the old debate over whether everything that's going on in the world right now, is it malice or is it stupidity and incompetence? Why not both?
Both, yeah.
Why can't they hate everybody and want to keep themselves in power for as long as possible, while also being horribly incompetent at doing that?
The thing about this Inflation Reduction Act was doubly funny for people who don't know. Obviously had nothing to do with inflation, because that's not how you reduce inflation, by printing money.
What? No.
Yeah, it was literally just for actual brainlets who vote Dem, I guess, to be like, we're doing something. In here is just loads of green stuff, like a green bank they set up for like 50 billion.
What does the green bank do? All banks print green, surely.
Yeah, I would have thought, but it turns out it wasn't even costing 0.7 trillion. Goldman Sachs says it cost 1.2 trillion because all the green stuff is just, not accounted for properly. So that's great. So, you got Biden there spending over 4 trillion, not because of there's a pandemic, but instead because that's how you stimulate the economy, friendo, by causing mass inflation. That's...
You ever heard of a guy called John Maynard Keynes, dumbass?
You know what would happen if everyone had their wages cut? The economy would be better off. That's real big brain thinking, my friend. And then we're not even going to talk about like the M1 money supply. I don't know if you can hit max on that for the chart, just because it doesn't really represent how bad things are until you look at that.
So this is what I mean. Why I think a lot of people were saying 80% of all dollars ever printed, because it kind of looks that way.
You may have noticed that they started destroying them because they were like, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
that would have been
they're
pretty foolish.
They're printing them straight into the flames.
Yeah.
Straight into the ovens.
Point is, going to Venezuela for a moment, it's not greedy Venezuelan workers who are demanding a pay increase because, there's 100% inflation going on that caused the 100% inflation. That doesn't make any sense. Literally can't make any sense. So yeah, I was simping for Jon Stewart sitting there being like, that's retarded, for all of 10 minutes until John turns around and is like, you know who it is?
Do you know what else? I'm retarded.
Me too, said Johnny Boy. That corner shop that's put the prices of Kit Kats and sodas up? That greedy corner shop business owner over there. No, I think that man might have put up his prices because, again, inflation of the currency supply affects him too. And neither of these people, the business owner there or the employee contractor, are the ones ruining the country. Neither of them can print money. It is the man who can print the money who is ruining the country by printing money. Shock horror, I know. I love how when it comes to like Venezuela, everyone can be like, yeah, it probably was the Venezuelan government that ruined everything.
Or Weimar Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably those Weimars.
But then we get back
all
to
that money.
the West, and we're like, it's the employees. No, it's the business owners who are ruining it. It's like, no, man, it's really not.
When you have images of people with wheelbarrows of money in Weimar Germany walking so that they can afford their morning coffee.
The damn employees demanding those pay raises of 1 billion Reichmarks.
The coffee shop owner and the coffee shop barista didn't click their fingers and magic up all of that money that appeared in the wheelbarrow.
I mean, it's kind of hilarious. I love the idea that you've got a bunch of employees who are like, well, I want a pay raise of 1 billion Jillian Reichsmarks. That's what caused Weimar Germany to crash.
And there we have it, folks.
No, it wasn't the dude with the money printing machine instead. But just to end this off for some people, I don't know, local Dem might have tuned in. It's not Russia either. I'm bored of this.
Of course it isn't.
It's like, here's the inflation graph, and then Russia happens.
Then why was there an entire year before that where people were complaining about Bidenflation?
Yeah, why was it already going that way? I mean, if we go to the next one here, even The Economist notes this. It's like, you can say that it may have made it worse, but it wasn't the cause, nor is the trend line any different afterwards. It's like, no.
It has an incredibly momentary spike, then returns back to the trend line it would have been on before.
It's just mad to be like, Russia, and that's clearly a smokescreen. In fact, I don't know if you saw, there was a conservative politician on this morning who was like, well, why have you become really unpopular? The interviewer asked. And he said, well, it was because of Russia and their invasion of the Ukraine, which caused us to become unpopular.
That's why our approval rates were so sky high right before then.
Damn Putin, making people vote like, fuck off, man. Like, you ruined the economy, that's why you're unpopular.
Even at the end of 2020, the people who did vote for Biden were saying, like, well, I mean, I don't like him that much, but he's not Trump.
Yeah, we'll end this off, just the last link here, being that you have John concluding it's the greedy business owner who's charging more for Kit Kats who's done this. Not the guy with the money print machine.
Look at his face. What a smug bellend.
Yeah, I hate it. This is where John, why? You can be good at times, and then you ruin everything, such as this. I mean, to be fair, there is another aspect to wages that makes me annoyed, which is the whole idea that, when I'm making profits as a business owner, that's my right, because, I take the risk. I'm the business owner, therefore, okay. But then when the contractors come to me and are like, hey, I got 25% inflation too, up my wages. Those guys working at Apple, say John, who go to Apple and be like, you increased your prices at Apple. Maybe we can have that as well. No, because power dynamics.
Yeah.
But we'll end this off with the fact that John is also just not normal any other day of the week. Even his own audience hate him. You can see here, gender-affirming care. I don't have to tell you. I don't have to play you a clip from this. You know what's in this. It is John and his friends sitting around going, there are 3 genders, actually, and I don't know why cutting a child's dick off is so controversial.
I mean, we had the Top Gear intro at the beginning of this podcast. We know what he said.
It's stock crap, because he's, I don't know, a stock propagandist most of the time, of course. And
I
know
would call him an NPC, but he is the person disseminating the new code for the NPC.
Yeah, all I've got to say about this is nice dislikes, bro. Even your own audience in the comments are just like, you're full of crap. And then we can end it off with the last one here, where it's just the problem with the gender binary. Nice dislikes, bro. Suck it. Like, obviously you're being retarded.
A very feminine spirit, to be fair.
You know what the worst part about this? I'm not going to play it just in case YouTube strikes it. If they strike the previous clip I played, go to the website, I guess. But in this clip, like at the start of it, he spends the start of his segment about, transgenderism now is true, trust me, bro. 2 + 2 = 5. Essing on his own career. Like, he has pictures of him on screen when he used to make funny jokes, which were obviously true. And he says, oh yeah, those insensitive and untrue jokes I used to make.
He's prostrating himself in front of the crowd, isn't he? He might as well have just got the whip out and gone, don't burn me, I'm a witch, but don't burn me.
It's just sad. Just actually sad. But anyway, I think the Jon Stewart used to be good meme is kind of wrong.
Yes.
I think the crowd is right about that. But my point being that it's annoying when I'm watching this dude, and sometimes he can be like, yeah, what you're saying makes no sense. And he's right. And then he has to ruin it all with the next thing out of his mouth. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Symposium series, this episode on the politics of Aristotle Part 1. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.